did my reset.
I'm here at GDC with Fred, and this is an exciting day for you. You're showing off Bombshell for the very first time. How are you feeling?
Very excited, very nervous.
Cool. So this is kind of a new thing for you guys. Interceptor previously worked on Rise of the Triad and a little bit with Shadow Warrior. You have done a lot of first-person shooters, but this is an isometric game that sort of captures the feel of fast-paced 90s first-person shooters. Why did you make the perspective switch?
So we kind of made a little thing within Interceptor that we would like to make a new genre every time we make a new game. Or at least try and innovate within genres every time we make a new game. So something we wanted to do was to take the really fast-paced aspect of Twitch shooters and a great explorative nature of old 90s shooters, and then try and put it into a new perspective. And it was kind of a weird mix in the beginning, and it took quite some time to make it feel really good. But once we finally nailed it, it feels absolutely amazing to play. It's super fun.
Definitely, and you know it absolutely has that 80s action movie vibe, and I feel like that's sort of been captured before with games like Duke Nukem and Doom. But normally in those types of games, you know, you see male protagonists that are sort of very macho. But you guys, Bombshell is sort of this rough and tumble woman. Was that a conscious decision? Did you want to do something different with your lead character?
So we always wanted to do our own IP, and Bombshell just felt really natural for us. We personally like female action heroes, but the gaming industry has taken some different routes with female action heroes in the past, where it's more about cleavage than it's about actual personality, and we wanted to do something true to who we were as a studio, and we felt that Bombshell should be a very, very strong leader. It should be a strong character you can identify yourself with without having to focus on the female aspect. She is a female, but she's first and foremost an ex-Navy SEAL demolitions expert, and she's super badass, and that's something we wanted to focus a lot on. We feel that there's a big lack of female action heroes you can actually look up to for other reasons than you know, the 90s reasons of, you know, old Lara Croft, and so we all know the characters. So that's something we always wanted to do, and Bombshell was just the perfect opportunity for that.
Definitely, and kind of that sort of like no-nonsense lead heroine and the sort of 80s action movie vibe of Bombshell. What were the biggest inspirations for you guys, you know, when you were making this game? What sort of things did you look at and say, that's kind of what we want to capture in this game?
So what we wanted to do was to create a big galactic adventure. We wanted this character to go out on a big adventure out in the galaxy to solve this ancient mystery and hunt down this madman, Jadis Haskell. We have 4 alien races in the game that are all conspiring against the Earth. There's a lot of plot twists and so on. So really wanted to create a heroine that can do a lot of different things. And I think some of the inspirations might have been from other types of games. We absolutely love the Halo series in terms of Master Chief going out on galactic adventures. So you can kind of say there's a lot of inspiration from there. There's also a lot of inspiration from different sci-fi shows, everything from Guardians of the Galaxy, Star Wars, Star Trek, Stargate, stuff like that. So definitely science fiction adventure heroes have been our main inspiration.
Very cool. That's all the stuff I really like, so it's a good sign. Going back to kind of the gameplay, one of my favorite things that I saw in the demo is how ridiculous you guys are getting with the weapons. You know, as someone who plays a lot of first-person shooters, I'm getting a little tired of, you know, always using shotguns that kind of feel the same, using pistols that kind of feel the same. But you guys have so many different weapons. I mean, you showed us one where it shoots out drills and it goes into the enemy's hearts and they're bleeding all over the place. How did you guys kind of come up with these crazy weapons, and what did you want them to accomplish in the game?
So first of all, they had to fit Bombshell arsenal, and she is a former demolitions expert. So Bombshell has her own bombs called the bowling bombs, and the bowling bombs are basically intelligent. So they seek out the enemies, and if there are no enemies in range, they basically jump back to your back. So it was all about creating personalized weapons. The arm itself is called Knuckles, and it has its own little AI. It talks back to Bombshell, and it has its own personality. It's really, really cool. You can drop it off, and Knuckles will run around and do a little task for you. You can control it yourself, while Bombshell uses her Trigon, the lover boy. So personality was key in making the weapons of the game, making sure that every single weapon felt personalized and felt like they were meant for Bombshell.
Cool. something that I love the speed and just sort of the insanity of those old '90s shooters that you guys have sort of captured before. But another thing about Bombshell I think is really interesting is you guys have a crazy progression system. So you have all of these weapons, and each of those weapons can level up, and you can go down different paths with each of those weapons. Can you kind of elaborate on that
sure.
and how that actually works in the game?
So we have 8 different weapons in the game, which are basically blueprints. So during the game, Bombshell unlocks these different new abilities for your arm that transforms itself into weapons. Each of those 8 main weapons has its own tech tree of 10 levels, and during this tech tree, you can unlock new secondary and third fire modes. So there's more than 40 different weapon types in the game in total, and you can all customize that throughout the game to make like the perfect arm for your character. Mm-hmm. And each of these fire modes are drastically different. So you might have a primary fire mode that does one thing, that's the main weapon fire mode, and then the secondaries does something completely different. The key here was to make sure that every fire mode you unlock can complement other fire modes. So nothing ever feels like, all right, now I got the secondary, so I'm never going to use the primary anymore. It always had to complement each other. So a great example is on Knuckles, the arm itself. When you drop him, one of the primary fire modes that you get in the beginning is that Bombshell pulls out the Lover Boy, the Trigun, and you can use that while Knuckles serves as a little sentry drone for you. And in later levels, you can also take over control of Bombshell and drop little mines. But you'd still want to have him run around as a drone besides controlling him. So they complement each other really fine. So a good example is that you can drop down Knuckles, run in front of you, place 5 or 6 mines, then activate his sentry drone mode. Then you throw a bowling bomb to lure enemies in. They blow up with the bombs, and then you shoot them with the Trigun. So stuff like that feels really, really great in the game.
That just sounds like pure insanity. Now, there's so many upgrades, there's so many different paths that you can go down with the weapons that you were saying you can't possibly see all of it on your first playthrough. And during subsequent playthroughs, you get to keep your progress already. So how many times do you think players will have to go through the game to see all there is to see?
So the main single-player campaign is around 12 to 15 hours in length. But you won't get the last weapon before you're 1 or 2 levels before the end of the game. So during the second and third playthroughs, there'll be many areas that you can unlock that require certain abilities and weapons that you unlock later in the game. I think after 2 or 3 playthroughs of the entire game, you'll be able to have a fully maxed out character with all the weapons at the max out levels and so on. But you still won't be able to unlock all the modes. During the tech trees, you have to take certain decisions. You know, do I want to go with this secondary fire mode or this other secondary fire mode? And once you make a decision, you can't go back. So you have to kind of carefully decide what direction you want to go through when basically designing your perfect arm for Bombshell.
Cool. Another thing that you showed off is Bombshell, for as many weapons as he has, won't just be shooting the entire time. You know, by pulling the camera back, you guys can do a lot of platforming and different puzzles. Sort of how much of that is in the game and what can we expect versus the just shooting guys?
So there's a lot of puzzles in the game. Bombshell has 4 abilities, 4 powers she can use besides using the weapons. And those 4 powers allows her to do a slide. There's a mighty punch. There's something called Ghost Shell and Bubble Shield. And a combination of those powers will allow Bombshell to reach new areas, find secrets, solve different puzzles in the game. We spend a lot of time designing puzzles around what we used to like as kids in puzzles. And that are puzzles where you both have to think, but you also have to have a great reaction time. You have to have great skill in precision. And that's the kind of puzzles you'll expect to get in this game. And also puzzles where you have to figure out how to use a combination of your different abilities in order to solve the puzzle.
Cool. So there's a lot of replayability to Bombshell. When you go through on that second time, that third time, and you're sort of chasing those final upgrades, will the game change in any way? Like, as you're going through your second time, will enemies be more difficult? Will you see enemies in different places?
Yeah.
Or will enemies just be tougher?
So we have a certain range of enemies that you won't find unless you go through a second and third time. A good example are the assault troopers you meet in the game. There are Emperor variations of those. And the Emperor variations, you won't meet the Emperors until the second and third playthrough. Those are really cool. They have like a big electric flag on the back, and they'll basically stick that into the ground, and that will serve as a teleport relay for other enemies. So instead of just spawning a lot of enemies in the same place where there used to be just a couple, we make sure that we have enemies that gives it a bit more sense that now there's more enemies here because he has a teleport relay he can place and so on. So we have a lot of new enemy variations when you go through the second and third time. But we're not putting that stuff in second and third playthrough because we want the players to play second or third times. You'll get to experience pretty much everything there is in the core game in the first playthrough. But we want to make sure that for those who want to go through a second time and an even more brutal difficulty mode, there is something little extra in there to make it a bit more interesting as well.
As a collaboration between 3D Realms and Interceptor, you were telling me that Bombshell is something that was lying dormant for 3D Realms. There's an idea they had a long time ago, and you guys are finally bringing it to life. What's sort of the working relationship there? What is Interceptor working on with Bombshell? What is 3D Realms working on with Bombshell? How do you guys collaborate?
So my partner Interceptor, he owns 3D Realms today, and when he acquired 3D Realms and when we joined forces in Denmark, we got Scott Miller back on board. The founder of 3D Realms, and he revolutionized many things such as the Xiaomi model, and everyone knows Duke Nukem, Max Payne, Prey, and so on. So he's been immensely helpful. The way we work together is that we're all in the same office space, but the Interceptor branch is basically the developer branch, while 3D Realms serves as the publisher. So we're both developing and publishing everything in-house, and then we're trying to get as many of the old-timer 3D Realms crew back to help us out. There's many people from 3D Realms that had a lot of talent back in the 90s, but basically left the gaming industry. And we're trying everything we can to bring a lot of those back and get them back into the gaming industry, because we feel that a lot of these people had so much to offer, and they kind of left the gaming industry when 3D Realms collapsed, and we think many of these people need a second chance. So we're really trying to bring 3D Realms back. In terms of who works on the game from 3D Realms side, alongside former previous 3D Realms members, Scott Miller is also helping out a lot. He's an expert in transmedia IP and how to create story verses around games, and that's something we've tapped into whenever we're creating a new IP. And that's something, many of the same pillars we went through in terms of creating a new IP was the same pillars that they went through at 3D Realms when creating Max Payne and Duke Nukem and Prey and so on. So it's been extremely exciting, and we couldn't be happier with the collaboration between 3D Realms and Interceptor.
Excellent. Well, I was very excited about what I saw today. When can we get our first taste of Bombshell?
We're aiming for 2015 summer release of the game. We're currently in pre-beta, and we're wrapping up everything. We're pretty much content complete, so there's a ton of stuff to go through. We're balancing all the weapons, all the fire modes. We're making sure everything feels super fun and powerful, but still very challenging. So that's what we're going through now, and then of course eliminating all the bugs in the game.